How you doing, YouTube? This is Gunner Sergeant 67 bringing you another YouTube video. Today's YouTube video is going to be on the 10 prepping items everyone living in an apartment needs. Alright YouTube, let's get into it. Alright, so if you're into the preparedness lifestyle and you also don't own your own home, you live in an apartment or a condo or a townhouse, you are definitely dealing with things that make your preparedness journey a lot harder. You definitely have a lot more challenges than everyone that is in the preparedness community that owns their own home or they rent a home even. One of the issues is space. Space is always going to be an issue. One of the other issues is a lot of these apartments, they do have a lot of restrictions, like you can't do modifications. Like, as being a prepper, security is a big deal with me. So things like reinforcing my doors and my windows and my locks and things like that are no-brainers to me. Those are things that you can't really do in an apartment sometimes, because some of the rules in apartment complexes or with townhomes and things like that is they don't want you doing any type of improvements or additions or anything like that to the property. So, and then other ones is a lot of places don't like open flames. So you're really bound by the power grid and what is available in that apartment complex. So with that being said, taking all of those factors in mind, these are the 10 preparedness items that I personally think everyone living in an apartment needs in order to get through an SHTF situation. All right. The first item that everyone living in an apartment is going to need is going to be food and water. There's no getting around it. You got to eat and you got to stay hydrated. And me personally, when I lived in an apartment, some of the things that I ensured that I squirreled away was shelf-stable foods, canned foods, MREs, or things like this right here, Mountain House freeze-dried foods. I usually had on hand between those items at least a month's worth of food, at least. And at the time it was just me, I was single, but still I prepared that month long for at least 3 people, just in case. Back then my preparedness plan was, I was still active duty in the Marine Corps. I had 2 friends that lived in the barracks, and one of our preparedness rally points if things got pretty bad was my place. And then from there we would have relocated. But in anticipation of them coming, I always stocked 1 month's worth of food for 3 people. And this was shelf-stable food, it was canned goods, MREs, and freeze-dry food. Now, to complement that, you want to make sure that you have, and again, this is my opinion, at least when it comes to water, 2 weeks supply. And again, I went ahead and had 2 weeks supply of water for 3 people. Now, FEMA recommends it's 1 gallon per person per day. I think that is really low. So I bumped that up to at least 1.5 gallons of water per person per day. And water's heavy. Water takes up a lot of room. So what I did was I had a certain amount of water that I kept as far as bottled water. And then I went ahead and had some of these. This is a Scepter can. These are outstanding water cans. This is a 2.5 gallon Scepter can. They make 5 gallon ones. I do have a couple of 5-gallon ones. I have 3 of them, and then I have one of these 2.5 gallons. So but that right there, the 4 Scepter cans, that's 17.5 gallons of water just right there. And then I would have about 4 or 5 cases of water. And then I also had things like this aquapod. That way, if the power went out and I knew that it was going to be a long power outage, I would pull this out and I would fill this up with water. And it's got its own pump, it comes with it. But this was a way for me to go ahead and store 70 gallons of water, plus my bottled water and plus the water that I had in these Scepter cans. So it actually was well over a month's worth of water for me and my 2 friends at the time. So you want to make sure you stockpile food, in my opinion, just 1 month's worth of food at minimum, and then at least 2 weeks worth of water. In addition to that, if the actual event, the SHTF event, is prolonged, it takes longer than your 2 weeks, you want to make sure that you have the ability, if you're going to bug in your apartment, you want to have the ability to be able to harvest more water and to filter it and purify it. So you want to make sure you have a purification for water, a method for purification and filtration, and then you want to be able to have the ability to collect water. So make sure you have some form of buckets or Tupperware and maybe a couple of tarps to be able to channel rain runoff. All the apartments I stayed on, they had small balconies. You had like a sliding glass patio door. You opened it up and then boom. So I was able to collect rainwater if I needed to. So the first prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is food and water. The second thing that you're going to want to ensure that you have in an apartment is some type of alternate power source. For me, it is solar generators. And with solar generators, like what is in front of you right now, here is a Jackery Explorer 1000 V2, and then here is a older legacy model of a Jackery Explorer 550. Both of these are outstanding alternate power sources. This has got 1070 watt hours and this has 550 watt hours. And they are excellent at running everything from small to mid-size electronics. I have a video on my YouTube channel that does the review of this, and I was able to run my refrigerator, my coffee maker, my toaster, my microwave, and recharging batteries, powering up my drone, recharging my rechargeable batteries, anything that you can think of as far as medium to small range electronic devices, these can handle. And I do understand that these are expensive, to include the solar panels. You don't necessarily have to get something like this. You can get something like this, the Goal Zero Venture 75. This is 90 watt power bank, and here's the Venture 35. This is a 33 watt hour power brick, and these can sit down there and do the same things on a much smaller scale. They can go ahead and power up your cell phones. They can charge rechargeable flashlights, things like that. Or you couple this with a small solar panel, like a 10 or 510, or what I have, I've got a 14 watt Goal Zero solar panel that specifically is designed to recharge these. And now I've got a small scale alternate power source. I've got a small solar panel and a power bank to store that energy, and now I can utilize it for later. But you want a way to be able to power your essential electronics. And again, what better way than a solar generator? Now, some people are going to say, hey, you know, why don't you just get a small gasoline generator? Well, if you live in an apartment building or apartment complex, a lot of these places don't allow that. So the best thing to do is to get some type of solar generator or power bank. In addition to that, gasoline generators are very noisy. They bring attention to you. And when you're living in an apartment, there's a high concentration of people. So it kind of messes up your OPSEC, your operational security posture. So for me, my alternate power sources living in an apartment are solar generators. The third prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is portable battery operated fans. Now, with these fans, the reason why I think this is a necessity is because grid down scenarios, power outages, SHTF events aren't relegated to just good weather. They're going to happen when it is excessively hot or if it's excessively cold. And if the grid goes down during the summertime, you're not going to be able to have the ability to cool your environment down. So having something like this, these Ryobi portable battery operated fans, is perfect to provide you some relief. Now, I know there's people that are going to be in the comments section that are going to say, hey, well, all those fans are good for is just blowing hot air around. There is some truth to that. But if anybody has ever lived in a hot environment, I've said numerous times, I live here in the great state, the free state of Florida, and it is hot and humid here. And I have had the power go out, and I have utilized these fans during those hot, humid conditions, and this does provide some relief. Now, this isn't going to cool down a room that you're in. If you sit down and you turn these fans on directly onto you, it will provide you some relief. It will cool you down, especially if you're trying to sleep at night. As I've stated numerous times on multiple other videos, I'm a retired Marine. I've been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Jordan. I've been in a couple countries in Africa, and all of these places are extremely hot. And numerous times I've been in places where I did not have air conditioning. But some of these places I had access to fans. And when you're in those conditions and you're trying to sleep and you have some type of fan blowing directly on you, that will give you enough relief to sleep and get the required sleep you need in order to be able to do tasks the next day and not be completely worn out. So this is the reason why having a portable battery operated fan is a good idea in an apartment setting. So this fan right here, this 7.5 inch Ryobi Whisper fan, and even this small 3-inch fan can provide certain levels of relief. And you couple these with the solar generators that I just showed you guys, and you have a bunch of these batteries, you can go ahead and have some type of relief from the heat at the tips of your fingers during a grid down scenario. And if these don't cut it, then you can go ahead and upgrade to bigger fans as well, like this one right here, which is the Ryobi Air Cannon. Now, this is a massive fan. This blows a crap load of air, and if you put that directly on you, if these other two fans that I showed aren't cutting it, this definitely will. So the third prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is battery operated portable fans. The fourth prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is going to be some form of heat generation for the winter months, for the bitter cold. Me personally, when I lived in an apartment, I had this Mr. Heater Buddy Heater. This thing is probably, in my opinion, the most efficient and the safest indoor heater that you can probably buy. The Mr. Heater line of heaters. Now, this thing throws off something like 6 or 8,000, either between 8 to 6,000 BTUs of heat. Now, and I think 8,000 BTUs is on high for this thing, and then on low, it's something like 6,000 BTUs. But this is not going to go ahead and warm up your whole apartment. When you're dealing with inclement or temperature shifts up and down, you want to try to save as much of your resources that you have as possible. And then what my plan is that if I ever got caught during a grid down scenario and it was winter time, I would go ahead and enclose myself in one of my smaller rooms in my apartment, and I would utilize this. It takes a lot less resources to heat one small room vice your whole apartment, hence conserving my propane that it takes to power this and retaining that heat in that small space for longer. So now with anything that you have with open flames, you need to ensure that you have fire extinguishers on hand. You want to make sure you have smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors when you're dealing with any type of open flames in your apartment, your condo, your townhouse, or even your home. You want to take the necessary precautions to ensure that if some type of accident happens, you have the ability to minimize the damage to property and individuals' physical safety. So make sure you have a fire extinguisher, smoke detectors, and carbon monoxide detectors when you utilize something like this Mr. Heater Buddy Heater. What I used to do is I used to put this on a cookie sheet, and I would go ahead and turn it on, and I would leave it on for a specific period of time, let the room heat up, and if the room got heated up to a specific level and I was satisfied, then I would turn it on and then I would go to sleep. Now, sometimes I had to wake up in the middle of the night and I would have to turn this back on. But I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they turn this on and then they leave it unattended, whether it's because they're asleep or it is because they've left the room or even the premises. I don't like doing that. Now, are there instances where you might have to leave this on? It's so cold that you might have to leave this on. If you do, just be safe. Me personally, I haven't gotten a situation yet where I have had to do that. But if you get in that position, just ensure that, again, you have all those safeguards. You have a fire extinguisher, carbon monoxide detector, and a smoke alarm. You put it on some type of non-combustible service. Like I said, I put it on a big cookie sheet, and you let it run. But again, I do not advocate that. I heat up the area, and then I turn it off, especially if I'm not going to be in the area, if I'm going to be asleep. I try not to leave anything that utilizes fire unattended. So that is the fourth prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs, a Mr. Heater Buddy Heater. The fifth prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is going to be some form of propane or butane camping stove, so you can cook your food, heat your food up, or purify water. And for me, my choice is the Gas One portable dual fuel stove. This thing is a beast. There's tons of reviews out there on YouTube on this particular dual fuel stove. It is awesome. It takes propane, just like this 1 pound propane I got in front of you, and it also takes butane cylindrical cartridges. Again, just like with the Mr. Buddy heater, if you're going to operate this inside of your apartment, ensure you have a fire extinguisher, smoke detectors, and carbon monoxide detectors. And when you're utilizing it, do not leave it unattended. Always be there to control turning it on and off, and watching closely how it's operating. That way nothing happens. So that is the number 5 prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs, is a gas one dual fuel stove. The 6th prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is a sleeping bag or some wool blankets. And this complements the Mr. Buddy heater. You utilize the sleeping bag that I've got in front of you along with your Mr. Buddy heater. You should be able to ride out just about any winter storm with those 2 items. So this right here is a 3-piece USMC sleeping system. It has 3 bags. The interior bag is a green sleeping bag that is usually used for spring and summer. And then there is a black sleeping bag that goes around the green sleeping bag, which is for fall and winter. And then there is a Gore-Tex outer bag that protects your other 2 sleeping bags from the rain, the moisture, grime, things like that. So when you combine all 3 sleeping bags, this sleeping bag is good to -30 degrees below zero. So I have never personally tested it out that low, but I've done numerous training exercises with this exact same type of sleeping system, and I have went to -5 below zero, and I have been just fine. As a matter of fact, I've had to open up my sleeping bag because it got too warm. And when you're in a cold environment, you don't want to start sweating, because that's bad juju. So the number 6 item preppers living in an apartment need is a sleeping bag or wool blanket. The 7th prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is some way to take care of your human waste, or a sanitation plan. And for me, my sanitation plan for getting rid of human waste, or at least storing it safely, is a sanitation bucket with a gamma lid. Now, you buy these buckets at Home Depot, Lowe's. I got this one at Lowe's, obviously, because it says Lowe's. And then I go ahead and buy the gamma bucket lid attachments. I put it on the bucket, and what I would do if I have to utilize this bucket in my sanitation plan is that I would take one of these heavy duty garbage bags, and I would line this bucket with it, just like as if I was putting this in a garbage can. I would straddle it, do my business. I would throw some cat litter inside of it once I'm done, and all of my toilet paper, and then I would go ahead and close it up. I would tie it off real tightly, and it would compact the space, and then you leave it in here. I've got cats, so I've always got cat litter on hand, so the cat litter helps cut down on the smell. You've got the human waste enclosed in the garbage bag and inside of here, and then you can put the gamma lid back on. So you want to have a way to safely and healthily dispose of your human waste. And during a grid down scenario, one of the best ways is something as simple as this gamma lidded bucket. That is the 7th prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs, is some type of sanitation bucket with trash bags. And if you want to go ahead and make it even more comfortable, you can go ahead and buy a pool noodle. You can make a slit down the middle with a knife, and then you can go ahead and clamp it down onto the edges of this bucket, and it makes it that much more comfortable having to use it. The 8th prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is some form of first aid kit and your over-the-counter medications. Just because a SHTF event happens or a grid down scenario transpires doesn't mean that you're going to stop getting hurt or you're not going to get any injuries. As a matter of fact, during those events, the risk of injury is a lot higher. So you want to make sure that you have the way to stabilize yourself in case you receive some type of injuries. So the best way to start off is get yourself some type of medical kit. You can go ahead and buy something like this, that is one of these pre-made kits. And what I've done is, this was a pre-made kit, but I've augmented it with other things. And then I have other like Tupperware containers that have additional medical items in it, like medical shears. I've got trauma bandages, I've got quick clot, I've got a couple of tourniquets, which I reviewed on this channel before, and I've got plenty of over-the-counter medications. Your standard painkillers, your standard burn ointments, anti-diarrhea medication, things of that nature. So you want to make sure that you have the ability to provide a certain level of first aid during SHTF events. So the number 8 prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is some type of first aid kit and your over-the-counter medications. The 9th prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is flashlights and lanterns. What I got in front of you is a Coleman LED lantern. It's pretty bright. It's got 3 settings. It'll light up a whole room. I got the Streamlight lantern. It's got a couple settings to include a red and then SOS, and then your standard head lantern, and then I got an Olight Seeker 4. Fabulous light. Olight makes some great products, so does Streamlight. But you need to be able to see in the dark, plain and simple. Whether the dark is caused by because it's nighttime and you're trying to do things after dark, or if you're in a space that completely blocks out the light, you want to be able to still move around safely in your apartment. And there's no better way than having lanterns and flashlights. And like with this Seeker 4, it is a flashlight that you can go ahead and plug up to one of the solar generators that I displayed earlier in this video, and it can power it up. I've got a bunch of rechargeable batteries that I can put into this headband flashlight and have it continuously working. Same with the 2 lanterns. I have rechargeable batteries that I can recharge via my solar generators. And I've stocked up on plenty of batteries as well. So being able to see at night or low visibility is definitely a must. The 9th prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is lanterns and flashlights. And the 10th and final item everyone living in an apartment needs is some form of personal protection. Whether that be, if it's legal where you live, firearms, crossbow, bow and arrow, some form of bladed weapons, baseball bats, or any form of non-lethal protection. Living in an apartment, you have a bunch of people that are centrally located in a very small space. And during times of high stress or SHTF, WRL, whatever you want to call it, and it becomes an extended period of time and people's resources are starting to run low, people are going to get scared. People are going to, if they can't buy the things that they need to survive, people are going to start taking them. That is just the nature of things. There's a saying that I'm sure if you are been in the preparedness community for a while, that we are 3 or just 9 meals away from anarchy. And I truly believe that. I've seen it transpire. In the Marine Corps, we, having been deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, and some of these other Middle Eastern and African countries, you see firsthand what happens when resources are scarce in a specific area that has a high population, which is concentrated in a small space, and people are trying to get the things that they need. They will resort to violence, stealing, lying, cheating, whatever they need to get the things that they need to survive and for their families to survive. So it is imperative that when you live in one of these high density areas, that you have a way to protect your preparedness, stockpile your preparedness items, and your family and yourself. And me personally, I live in the United States. I live in the great free state of Florida. I have chosen that personal protective items as firearms. And it can be something like what we have right in front of you, a revolver or semi-auto. You could choose a shotgun. Hell, you can even use an AR-15, but just make sure that whatever your personal protection piece of equipment is that you utilize it responsibly, and if you have to use it in a self-defense situation, and you use it legally. Make sure that you get plenty of training with these firearms. Whatever you use, make sure you train with it. And like I just said, make sure that you utilize it at the appropriate times in a legal and law-abiding way. In addition to that, if you have to use a firearm in an apartment, just understand that every single round that leaves that firearm, you're responsible for. So you have to take into consideration the people around you. A .357 round will go through numerous sheets of sheetrock, and that's what a lot of these apartment complexes have. They've got sheetrock in separating apartments, and a .357 round, even from this short-barreled revolver, is going to go through a lot of sheets of sheetrock. So again, just be very aware of your surroundings. Make sure that if you ever have to utilize firearms, that you do it in a legal, law-abiding way, and it is covered under, like here in Florida, we have Stand Your Ground. And if I ever have to pull these firearms out to use them, it is going to fit that definition of Stand Your Ground. But yes, the 10th prepping item everyone living in an apartment needs is personal protection item. All right, just to go over the 10 prepping items everyone living in an apartment needs. Number 1, food and water. Number 2, alternate power sources like solar generators with solar panels. 3, portable battery operated fans for the summer heat. 4, Mr. Heater Buddy Heater for the winter. 5, some type of camping stove like the Gas One dual fuel camping stove. 6, sleeping bags or wool blankets. 7, some form of sanitation removal like what I have, sanitation buckets with trash bags. 8, first aid kits and OTC medications. 9, flashlights and lanterns. And 10, personal protection items. Alright, YouTube, that's about it for today. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe button. Please go ahead and share this video with your friends and family. In the comments below, let me know what you like, what you don't like. Is this a pretty good list? Is this a solid 10 prepping items everyone living in an apartment needs. Have I left anything out? What would your list be? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. All right, this is Gunner Restart in 67. I'm out.